Mara had worked in the glass-walled penthouse for nearly 3 years, long enough to know every sound it made when it was alive and when it was uneasy. She knew the slow hum of the elevator, the whisper of the curtains when the morning wind pushed through the balcony doors, and most of all, she knew the voice of little Leo. His cries were not loud like other babies she had cared for before. They were soft, almost polite, as if he feared bothering the world. That morning, as sunlight spilled across the marble floor, Mara paused while folding a blanket and whispered to herself, "That cry isn't hunger." She moved toward the nursery, her slippers barely making a sound. From behind her, Celine's voice floated sharply through the hall. "Mara," Celine called, her tone calm but tight. "I need you to run downstairs and collect a package. It's urgent." Mara turned, surprised. "Right now, miss?" she asked gently. Celine smiled, though it did not reach her eyes. "Yes. I'll watch the baby." Mara hesitated. Something in Celine's posture felt wrong, stiff like a locked door. "Leo just settled," Mara said carefully. Celine crossed her arms. "Are you questioning me?" The words landed heavy. Mara lowered her head. "No, miss. I'll be quick." As she stepped into the hallway, Leo's cry stopped suddenly, cut short in a way that made Mara's chest tighten. She froze for a second, her hand on the doorframe. "That's strange," she murmured, but fear had no proof, and duty pushed her forward. Still, as the elevator doors closed, Mara felt the morning shift, like calm water hiding something dark beneath. Mara returned sooner than expected, the package barely touched, her heart beating faster with every step. The penthouse was too quiet. Not peaceful. Empty. She slipped off her shoes and moved down the hallway, listening. Then she heard Celine's voice from the nursery, low and sharp. "You cry too much," Celine whispered. "Your father won't always come running." Mara stopped cold. She leaned closer, her breath shallow. Celine continued, her voice calm but cruel. "Do you know what happens to things that make too much noise?" There was a soft tap, not a strike, just the sound of a wooden training stick brushing the crib rail. Leo made no sound. That silence was louder than screaming. Mara pushed the door open. "Miss Celine," she said, forcing her voice steady. Celine turned, startled, her smile snapping into place. "Oh, you're back already." Mara's eyes went straight to Leo. His tiny body was stiff, his wide eyes locked on Celine, his lips trembling but silent. Mara swallowed. "He's very quiet," she said. Celine shrugged. "I'm teaching him discipline early. Children need to learn." Mara stepped forward, her hands shaking. "Babies don't understand discipline," she said softly. Celine's eyes hardened. "You forget your place." Mara lifted Leo from the crib, holding him close. His small fingers clutched her uniform like it was the only safe thing left. "My place," Mara replied, her voice barely a whisper, "is to care for him." Celine laughed quietly. "He isn't even supposed to be here," she muttered. That sentence settled into Mara's bones like ice. Mara did not argue anymore. She carried Leo into the nursery bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the floor with him pressed against her chest. "You're safe," she whispered again and again, rocking him slowly. Leo's breath came in small, uneven pulls. "It's all right," she said softly, humming an old tune her mother once sang. Outside the door, Celine knocked sharply. "Open this door, Mara." Mara closed her eyes. "I can't do that," she said. "Not right now." Celine scoffed. "You are being dramatic." Mara looked down at Leo's face. "No," she said, firmer now. "I'm being careful." Minutes passed like hours. Then the front door opened. Footsteps echoed. A deep voice called out, "Celine?" It was Adrian Cole. Celine's tone changed instantly. "Adrian, thank goodness you're home early." Adrian frowned. "Why is the nursery locked?" There was a pause. "Mara is overreacting," Celine replied lightly. Adrian knocked. "Mara?" Her voice trembled, but did not break. "Sir, please, you need to know something." The door opened. Adrian's eyes went straight to Leo, still trembling in Mara's arms. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Celine laughed nervously. Nothing. The baby startled himself. Mara looked at Adrian, her eyes full but steady. That's not true, she said. She didn't hit him. She didn't have to. Her words scared him into silence. Adrian's jaw tightened. Celine, he said slowly, is that true? Celine opened her mouth, then closed it. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Adrian knelt beside Mara, his voice gentle but firm. Tell me everything, he said. Mara nodded. She said he was a problem, she explained. She said noise gets punished. Celine snapped. You're exaggerating. Adrian stood. Enough. His voice was sharp now. I grew up afraid, he said quietly. I won't let my son learn fear before he learns love. Celine stared at him. You're choosing a maid over me? Adrian shook his head. I'm choosing my child. Silence fell heavy. Celine grabbed her coat. You'll regret this, she said. Adrian did not answer. After she left, Adrian turned back to Mara. Thank you, he said simply. Mara lowered her eyes. I just did what was right. Adrian looked at Leo, now asleep against her shoulder. From today, Adrian said, you're not just staff. You're family. Mara's breath caught. Sir, guardian. Adrian corrected gently. If you're willing. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Always, she whispered. In the weeks that followed, the penthouse felt different. Warmer. Quieter in a good way. Mara spent her days with Leo, talking to him, laughing softly, teaching him the world was safe. Adrian watched them often from a distance. One evening he said, he laughs more now. Mara smiled. He knows he's heard. Adrian nodded. You changed everything. Mara shook her head. I just spoke when silence would have hurt him. Leo gurgled happily between them, unaware of how close his future had come to breaking. The home no longer echoed with fear, only with small sounds of healing, one brave choice at a time. Life settled into a new rhythm after Celine left, though the memory of her presence still lingered in quiet corners. Mara noticed it when Leo startled at sudden sounds or when he searched faces too carefully before smiling. One afternoon, while rocking him near the window, Mara whispered, You don't have to be afraid here. Leo stared up at her, his small brow wrinkled, then slowly relaxed. Adrian watched from the doorway. He trusts you, he said softly. Mara nodded. Trust grows when fear leaves, she replied. Adrian stepped closer. I should have seen it sooner, he admitted. Mara did not accuse him. You see it now, she said gently. Adrian exhaled. I want to make this right. Mara looked at Leo. Then stay, she said. Children need presents more than promises. Adrian smiled faintly. Then I'll learn how. Adrian began adjusting his life in small but meaningful ways. He canceled late meetings and sat on the floor during Leo's playtime. Is this how you stack them? He asked one evening, holding colorful blocks upside down. Mara laughed. Close, sir. Try turning it. Leo clapped when the tower stood. He likes when you try, Mara said. Adrian nodded. I'm trying. At night, when Leo fussed, Adrian offered to help. Let me, he insisted. Mara watched as Adrian held Leo awkwardly. Talk to him, she suggested. Adrian cleared his throat. Hey, little man, he said softly. Leo quieted. Adrian blinked in surprise. That worked. Mara smiled. He knows your voice. Adrian looked down at his son, emotion crossing his face. I miss too much, he whispered. Not everyone approved of the changes. Adrian's sister, Claire, visited one afternoon and raised an eyebrow at Mara sitting beside Adrian during dinner. Things look different, Claire remarked. Adrian replied calmly, they are. Claire glanced at Mara. You've grown comfortable. Mara met her gaze. Comfort grows where safety lives. Claire scoffed. You're a maid. Adrian set his fork down. She's Leo's guardian. Claire stiffened. That's inappropriate. Adrian's voice was steady. What was inappropriate was ignoring cruelty. Claire fell silent. Later, she watched Mara soothe Leo during a tantrum. Claire sighed. He's calmer, she admitted. Mara nodded. He's learning he won't be hurt for feeling. As months passed, Leo began to speak his first words. Ma. he said one morning, reaching for Mara. Adrian laughed softly. I guess I'll wait my turn. Mara corrected gently. He has room for many loves. Adrian smiled. I hope so. One night, Adrian found Mara in the nursery humming. Do you ever regret speaking up? He asked. Mara paused. Regret grows when we stay quiet, she said. Fear feeds on silence. Adrian nodded. You were brave. Mara shook her head. I was necessary. A letter arrived one afternoon, sealed and sharp-edged. Adrian opened it and frowned. Celine is contesting her dismissal, he said. Mara stiffened. What does that mean? Adrian sighed. She claims you misunderstood. Mara took a breath. Truth doesn't change because someone denies it. Adrian looked at her. Would you testify? Mara nodded slowly. If it protects Leo. In court, Celine spoke smoothly. I was correcting behavior, she said. Mara stood and spoke plainly. Fear is not correction, she said. Silence from terror is not peace. The room grew quiet. The judge nodded. The case ended quickly. Afterward, Adrian thanked Mara again. I couldn't have done this without you, he said. Mara replied, You did it by believing. Leo tugged at Adrian's sleeve. Up, he demanded. Adrian lifted him, laughing. Bossy already. Mara smiled. Strong voices grow when they're protected. Adrian looked thoughtful. Then we'll protect his voice. That night, Adrian read Leo a story. Again, Leo insisted. Adrian laughed. Again it is. Mara began taking classes in early childhood care at Adrian's encouragement. You already do the work, he said. You deserve the title. Mara hesitated. I never planned for this. Adrian replied, Life rarely asks permission. Leo sat between them, drawing circles. Look, he said proudly. Mara clapped. Beautiful. Adrian added, Very. Leo beamed. Confidence grew in small moments like these. One rainy afternoon, Leo cried hard after slipping on the floor. Mara knelt. It's okay to cry, she said. Adrian echoed. I'm here. Leo sobbed, then calmed. Adrian looked at Mara. Before, he would have gone silent. Mara nodded. Fear teaches children to disappear. Adrian whispered, I won't let him disappear. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. You won't. Adrian invited Mara to a family gathering, introducing her proudly. This is Mara, he said. She raised my son's courage. Some guests looked surprised, others curious. One asked, Isn't that unusual? Adrian replied, So is choosing kindness. Mara felt a warmth she had never known. Leo ran to her. Stay, he said. Mara smiled. I'm not going anywhere. Years passed gently. Leo grew taller, louder, braver. He asked questions. Why do people get mean? He asked one night. Mara answered carefully. Sometimes fear teaches the wrong lessons. Adrian added, and love can teach better ones. Leo nodded. Then we choose love. Mara smiled. Yes, we choose love. One evening, Adrian told Mara, I'm thinking of starting a foundation for children. Mara's eyes widened. That's wonderful. Adrian continued, I want it built on your idea, listening. Mara shook her head. It wasn't my idea. Adrian smiled. It was your courage. Leo clapped. I help, he said. Adrian laughed. You already are. The penthouse filled with laughter and open doors. Friends visited. Music played. Leo danced. Mara watched from the side, content. Adrian joined her. You saved us, he said quietly. Mara corrected him. You chose to see. Adrian nodded. And I'll keep choosing. Leo ran over. Dance, he demanded. They all laughed. One night, Mara stood alone in the nursery, remembering that first terrible morning. She touched the crib rail and whispered, You're safe. Adrian appeared behind her. Still, he asked. Mara nodded. Always. Adrian replied, Then this house will stay warm. Leo slept peacefully nearby. When Leo started school, he waved confidently. Bye, he shouted. Mara waved back. Adrian stood beside her.
He's strong, he said.
Mara smiled. Because he learned early that fear doesn't rule. Adrian nodded. We broke that chain. Mara replied, one brave moment can do that. Years later, when asked how everything changed, Adrian would say simply, someone spoke when silence was easier. Mara would smile and say nothing. Leo, grown and steady, would add, she listened when I couldn't speak. And that was the truth, how courage, spoken softly but firmly, turned fear into safety and gave a child a future built not on silence, but on love. As Leo grew into his teenage years, the lessons planted in his early childhood continued to shape him in quiet but powerful ways. He was thoughtful, observant, and unafraid to speak when something felt wrong. One afternoon, after returning from school, he placed his backpack down and said, someone in my class gets picked on. Mara looked up from the table. What did you do? She asked gently. Leo hesitated. I told the teacher. And I sat with him. Adrian, listening from the doorway, felt a tightness in his chest. That took courage, he said. Leo shrugged. You taught me that silence can hurt people. Mara smiled softly. And you chose kindness. Leo nodded. It felt right. In that moment, Mara realized the ripple of one brave choice had reached further than she ever imagined. What once began as protection had grown into character, steady and strong. The foundation Adrian created slowly gained recognition. It focused on early emotional safety, teaching caregivers how words, tone, and presence shape children more deeply than rules ever could. At an event, Adrian stood at a podium and said, this began in my own home. He looked at Mara and the crowd, because one person refused to ignore fear. Afterward, a woman approached Mara. How did you know when to speak? She asked. Mara thought for a moment. When love feels louder than fear, she replied. The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. Leo stood nearby, listening carefully. I think, he said later, that's my favorite lesson. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. Then remember it, she said. You'll need it. Time softened the sharp edges of the past, but it never erased the meaning of that first brave morning. One quiet evening, Adrian, older now, sat with Mara on the balcony. I used to think providing was enough, he admitted. Money, comfort, protection. Mara replied, children need safety inside, not just walls. Adrian nodded. You gave him that. Mara shook her head. You allowed it. Leo joined them, taller than both now. You both did, he said. Adrian laughed softly. I like how you think. Leo smiled. I learned from watching. The city lights shimmered below them, and the silence between them felt full, not empty. When Mara finally chose to retire, the penthouse felt different again, but not broken. On her last day, Leo hugged her tightly. You're still my family, he said. Mara held him. Always. Adrian added, this home exists because of you. Mara looked around, remembering fear turned into warmth, silence turned into laughter. Homes are built by choices, she said. You'll keep choosing well. Leo nodded firmly. I promise. As Mara walked out that evening, she felt peace instead of loss, knowing what she had protected would continue long after she stepped away. Years later, Leo would tell his own children a simple story, not about wealth or power, but about a woman who listened when he was too small to speak. She taught us, he would say, that courage doesn't have to shout. And in that telling, the truth lived on. That one quiet act of bravery can change a life, a home, and generations to come. Not through fear, but through love, honesty, and the willingness to stand up when it matters most. Long after Mara had stepped away from daily life in the penthouse, her influence remained stitched into its routines. Leo, now a young adult, often caught himself repeating her words without realizing it. One afternoon, while volunteering at the foundation, he gently told a nervous child, "You can take your time. I'm listening." The child looked up, surprised. Later, Leo smiled to himself and thought of Mara. "You'd be proud," he whispered. Adrian, watching from across the room, nodded knowingly. "She already is," he said. Leo laughed softly. "You always say that." Adrian replied, because it's always true. The building buzzed with quiet purpose, and Leo felt steady, rooted in lessons that had never faded. Adrian eventually slowed down, choosing mornings over meetings and reflection over ambition. One day, while sorting old photographs, he found a picture of Mara holding Leo as a baby, both of them mid-laugh. That was the day he learned to laugh without fear, Adrian said aloud. Leo, standing nearby, looked at the photo. That was the day you chose differently, he replied. Adrian nodded. It was the hardest and best choice I ever made. Leo placed the photo back carefully. It's the reason I know how to choose now. They shared a quiet moment, understanding passing between them without explanation. Years later, at a small gathering celebrating the Foundation's anniversary, Mara returned as a guest of honor. The room stood when she entered. Please, she said, embarrassed, sit. Leo approached her with a smile. You still make rooms change, he joked. Mara laughed. No, she said. People change rooms. Adrian raised a glass. To the courage that listens, he said. Mara met his eyes. And to the courage that acts, she replied. Applause filled the space, warm and sincere, echoing a truth that had grown larger than any one of them. As the evening ended, Leo walked Mara to the door. I tell your story often, he admitted. Mara shook her head. It's not my story anymore. Leo smiled. That's the best part. Mara touched his arm. Then keep telling it in how you live. Leo nodded. I will. Outside, the city lights glowed softly, and Mara felt the same peace she had felt years ago, knowing that what she protected had become something strong enough to protect others. And so the story did not truly end, but settled into the lives it had shaped. In every child who was listened to, in every adult who chose to speak when silence felt easier, Mara's quiet courage lived on. What began as one moment of truth had become a legacy of care, proof that kindness, when chosen bravely, does more than save a day. It builds a future. Years passed, and Leo's life continued to unfold with steady purpose. He chose a career working with children, not because of obligation, but because it felt natural. During his first week at a community center, a coworker asked, "Why are you so patient?" Leo smiled and replied, "Because someone once waited for me." The word surprised even him. That night, he called Mara. "I used your lesson today," he said. Mara laughed softly through the phone. "Then it's still working," she replied. Leo leaned back, feeling grounded. "It is," he said. "Every day." Adrian, now older and quieter, spent more time reading and walking through the city parks. One afternoon, he sat beside a young father struggling to calm a crying child. Adrian gently said, "Hold him close. Let him hear your voice." The man tried, and the child slowly relaxed. The father looked relieved. "Thank you," he said. Adrian smiled. "Someone taught me once." As he walked away, Adrian felt a deep sense of gratitude, not for success or wealth, but for wisdom learned the hard way and passed forward gently. Mara's days were simple and full. She tended a small garden, volunteered at the local library, and told stories to children who gathered eagerly around her chair. "What kind of stories?" one child asked. Mara smiled. "The kind where people choose kindness even when it's hard." A little girl raised her hand. "Do they win?" Mara thought for a moment. "Not always right away," she said honestly. "But in the ways that matter, yes." The children nodded, satisfied. Mara looked at their faces and felt the same quiet hope she had felt years ago in the nursery. At a family gathering, Leo watched Adrian and Mara talking quietly near the window. He joined them and said, "Do you ever think about how close everything came to going wrong?" Adrian nodded. "Often." Mara added, "But fear doesn't deserve the last word." Leo smiled. "No," he said. "Love does." Adrian looked at them both, his voice thick. "I'm grateful every day." Mara placed a hand over his. "That's enough," she said. As time continued its steady march, Leo began mentoring younger volunteers. One asked him nervously, "What if I say the wrong thing?" Leo replied, "Say something honest. Silence is worse." The volunteer nodded, reassured. Watching from nearby, Leo realized how far the lesson had traveled, from a frightened baby to a confident guide for others. He felt humbled by it, aware that strength often begins in the smallest moments, unseen and uncelebrated it. On a quiet evening, Leo visited the old penthouse one last time before it was sold. He walked through the nursery, now empty, and stood where Mara once had. "Thank you," he whispered, not to the room, but to the courage that had lived there. He closed the door gently, knowing the place had done its work. The safety it once held had moved into people, where it truly belonged. And so the story reached its final shape, not a dramatic ending, but a lasting truth. One person's willingness to speak, to protect, and to care had echoed through years and lives. Courage had not shouted. It had whispered, waited, and endured. In that quiet strength, fear lost its hold, and love, steady, patient, and brave, remained. Even after the penthouse was gone, the lessons it had housed traveled with those who had lived them. Leo, now a young man in his early 20s, often thought back to Mara's steady presence. One evening, after helping a child calm from a tantrum, he said quietly to himself, "This is because she stayed when it mattered." Adrian, now retired and slower in his movements, called Leo from his small apartment. "I saw your work today," he said. "I'm proud." Leo smiled, imagining Mara's calm expression. "I'm only following her example," he replied. Adrian chuckled. "Then make sure the world hears it too." Leo nodded, understanding that courage was not just an act, but a life path forward. Mara, for her part, had embraced a peaceful rhythm. She spent mornings in the library, afternoons in her garden, and evenings visiting children in her neighborhood. One day, a mother approached her nervously. "My son, he's afraid of everything," she admitted. Mara placed a hand gently on the woman's arm. "Then let him know someone will stay," she said, "even if it's just you today." Later, as she watched the boy draw slowly with concentration instead of fear, Mara felt a familiar warmth. It was the same feeling she had felt the morning Leo's cries stopped, not from silence, but from safety. Adrian often visited Mara, their friendship now unshakable and quiet. One afternoon, they walked along the park's tree-lined paths. "Do you ever regret stepping into our lives back then?" Adrian asked softly. Mara shook her head. "Regret grows when you stay quiet," she replied. Adrian looked at her thoughtfully. "Then we were brave together," he said. Mara smiled. "Bravery is easier when it's shared." Leo, passing by with a group of children he mentored, waved at them. Mara waved back, and Adrian grinned. The three of them, connected by years of courage and care, felt the legacy of their choices in every small step. Time continued, gentle but relentless. Leo had grown into a young man of integrity, empathy, and quiet confidence. He often remembered Mara's words, "Fear teaches silence, love teaches voice." He used them as a compass whenever he guided children or made decisions in his own life. One evening, he called Mara. "I had to help someone today, and I remembered what you said," he confessed. Mara chuckled softly. "Then you did the right thing." Leo paused. "I hope one day I can teach someone as well as you taught me." Mara's voice was calm but proud. "You already are," she said. And in that statement, years of guidance, protection, and courage were confirmed. The story ended not with a dramatic moment, but with enduring impact. Mara's quiet bravery, Leo's growing courage, and Adrian's steadfast support had created a chain of love and protection that could not be broken. Fear had once threatened to shape their lives, but it had been replaced by patience, empathy, and truth. And so, in every child who learned to speak, every adult who chose to act when silence tempted them, and every life touched by these choices, Mara's courage lived on, soft, steady, and eternal, a reminder that one voice, when used wisely, can echo across generations.